talk after, because we're literally just saying things that we would say on the recording now.
I hit record.
Awesome. Today I'm joined by Jacob. We are talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. Geez, well, it's been a little while, Jacob. How are you?
Good. I don't know if it's been a little while on your channel because the posting was spaced out well enough, so this might actually line up pretty well. But no,
Oh,
I'm
the
good.
posting, but when I record a video and when I put it public is like sometimes a month. Thinking like,
I'm sure this will
um,
be like just in time for Christmas, this one.
oh yeah, yeah. Uh,
I've been good, just hanging around, not watching horror.
that's not good. That's no
I
fun.
know, I know. I knew it would like, bring me back in. You'd rope me into it.
Me and Michael Bay.
Yes, the classic horror auteur, Michael Bay.
Oh, good Lord. I actually, yeah, I do like, I think I like the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Of course, it's the one from 2003. I think it's a pivotal year for the return. I've made like a video kind of about this year before because Wrong Turn came out in the same year and I have a Wrong Turn video. But also House of a Thousand Corpses came out this year and Cabin Fever was just a year before setting all this shit up. Um, this is peak return, and I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre did a good amount of heavy lifting.
Yeah, I was gonna. One thing I noted while watching was that this feels more like a 2005 to 2007 horror
Yeah,
movie. It doesn't feel
this
like
really
2003.
this set the tone for all of those. Because another thing about the 2000s, it goes along with the return. If we're returning to form, just I'm just gonna act like my ego isn't that big and that people are probably listening or watching this video without knowing what the fuck like all of my other stances and opinions on things, especially within horror. The return is a period that I think Jacob coined and I've
Did I?
definitely latched onto. I think I was describing this period to you and you're like, yeah, the return. I'm like, oh, that's succinct, that's perfect.
I don't remember that, but I'm going to take credit for it
I
anyway.
think I was calling it postmodernism, like deconstructionalism, like something terrible. And you're like, how about the return? The return is what I call that period. I'm like, oh, that's actually perfect. So, what we mean when we say the return is, I wish that you would actually say this because you're better with words than I am,
I am. Oh,
and you can.
it was probably self-explanatory, but the period following 9/11 in which the horror movie aesthetics kind of peaked, I suppose, or they hit their limit because you start with the 70s and 80s, you go all the way through horror starting out brutal, becoming kind of semi-ironic, self-referential. You hit the 90s, you get Scream, and the self-reflection eventually reaches a point where it can't go any further and you come right back full circle to brutality. And
Exactly. And you add
yeah.
a couple real life things, tragedies like you mentioned 9/11, but also Columbine in 99.
Yeah, I
And
know Hostel was like Abu Ghraib stuff, like a
yeah,
lot going on in the 2000s. Really, there's no other horror that could exist during that point in
and
time.
the horror that did exist in the late 90s was like almost anti-horror in certain characteristics. It was almost moving past the need for horror. It
Yeah.
was weird. I love it. It's my favorite time period is that postmodern period, and I think it left you with two different avenues to go down. One's like a pretty like sincere avenue, which I don't know where it would have ended up. Some like real pioneering would have had to be done in that post-ironic avenue, but we had to return to form. And I think it's not just for the escapism of horror, because the postmodern horror films did like almost directly talk about things that were like the bored, apathetic violence of white teenagers, like was very apparent in those movies, and they couldn't be anymore after Columbine, or at least you didn't really want to see that in a horror movie for a little while. Um, so we had like kind of returned to the basics. I don't like almost the basics of exploitation filmmaking, really just horror filmmaking. So of course remakes is I guess what I was getting at with the
Yeah.
return. it,
Yeah.
it makes
It's
perfect
this.
sense for this period because of course you're remaking the standards, you're remaking
Yeah.
them. And the thing about Texas Chainsaw Massacre is I think at least because a lot of remakes, I think where they fall flat is they don't like place them inside of some new adaptive context. Like they're just simply remaking the movie. But this one, I think it fit into the climate, like the period of when this film was made pretty well. And I want you to go into it a bit more because you have a much more thorough reading of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is one of my favorite horror films. My three favorite horror films are Scream, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the original Dawn of the Dead. But
Oh,
you're pretty good at reading Tobe Hooper's work. But I
oh
was
no,
just
I
gonna
love Tobe
say
Hooper.
about placing this film within the context because the original is about so like so many different ultra-violent things, specifically about like
There's a
of its
purity
time and
to it.
place. Yeah,
It's really pure. It's really pure. I think that's why it works. Actually, that was the difference I noted between this and the original, is that they're both
but I
really
think
good
that
mirrors. But
they're good mirrors, but this one is a bit more contrived than I think it should
yes,
be.
yeah,
But here's like, because what a House of a Thousand Corpses, Wrong Turn, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 all have in common. We're going back to those inbred psychopathic hillbilly things. And I think it's like a mirror showing us like more primitive versions of ourselves, like aspect of our modern culture that never like archetypally evolved, especially since we are dealing with um, like illegal brutal wars and like seeing ourselves in this new kind of light, and then there's still these dark parts of ourselves as the culture that are like out there still, because I don't think it's about some people would read some of these films possibly as like fear of the other kind of thing, but I think it's more like fear of like ourself, fear of yourself in this context. Like this is like the worst primitive version of you that still exists. It's pretty apparent that it still exists because the sadism is all over the news. So I think they like placed it in this context pretty well. Would you agree with that, or think I'm
yeah. No, I'd agree.
overreaching?
I'd agree. The only thing for me is that well, for context, the original movie was made like in a point where people were like, no one knew what the fuck was going on with the world, and it was
Yeah,
this really confusing, tumultuous period for people where it makes sense that a movie like that was made. Anything could happen to anyone at any time. That was the ethos of the film. Hooper described it as, quote, like a bad day for everybody. Like it's a bad day for the
mm,
people that get killed. It's a bad day for the people who have to kill them because like their house gets wrecked. Shit, like that was the joke in the movie. But this movie is different because uh, it's set in the same year as like the original film was set, 1973. But
yeah,
you can tell this was made like by people. I noted like this was made by people who have an internet connection.
yeah, yeah,
Their conception of like evil is very different, I guess. I think that probably explains like the aesthetics of it, like the brutality of it, and what you were talking about, just like everything fucking going on in the world. Everyone is logged on. Everyone can see it
yeah. The
firsthand.
difference
Like
is that we know all about it as opposed to
yes,
we don't know what's going on. That's actually pretty
exactly.
beautiful.
Thank you. But yeah, it's just a completely different climate. Like the original film's a cosmic horror film. It's like Lovecraft, you know. It's this evil
Yeah.
thing in the world you don't know what it is. This is like no, the
Whereas
evil's
like
just like some.
Leatherface is deliberately humanized in this movie too.
Yeah,
Like we know his
he
name, we see him in his
he has a
skin
tragic
condition or
childhood.
whatever.
Yeah, he has a
Exactly.
tragic childhood.
In
He was
fact, the
bullied.
sequel to this was I saw the sequel in theaters when it came out. I was like 16. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, the prequel we all
Yes,
wanted, but
I
it
always
does
wanted.
star um,
It's
a
like a
favorite of ours in the channel. Jordana Brewster is the star of that one. So
oh yeah.
yep, she still killed it in another horror movie I just forgot about when we talked about The Faculty. But it's the same kind of movie as this. But it goes to show, like, it kind of supports your reading of the film that, like, not only are we more conscious of what's going on in the world, but there's some morbid part of us that I think wants to know even more.
Yes, that's why again like not to keep bringing it up, but like Hostel was born out of like pictures circulating of people being tortured in prison. And like people sought out those images because they were like, I want to know what's going on. I want to see that. Whereas, you know, Texas Chainsaw 74, you don't want to see that shit. That's why they masked it in the movie. You don't see anything in the movie.
Exactly.
It's
Which I
very
think
obscured.
in this new one, I do think it is those darker, more primitive aspects of ourselves that we thought we outgrew, especially since when they translate his crazy brother into the modern age, they make him an Arlie Ermy cop, like it's authority figures.
Yes,
It's
yeah,
him.
I thought that was a great touch actually, to
I
make him a
thought he
cop.
did extremely well. He's scary as fuck. Okay, like
Yeah,
he's scary.
it
That's actually the most intense scene for me. It's nothing that Leatherface is in. It's the scene where he has, I believe his name is Jonathan Tucker from the Virgin Suicides. He has him in the back of the van, and he's like
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
making him like take the gun and like pretend to like hit, like show me exactly what she did. The hitchhiker that killed herself, and like, oh, she didn't kill herself like that, did she? You pansy! Put the gun in your mouth and pull the trigger.
Yeah, it's really twisted. It's really dark. I'm actually kind of surprised that scene wasn't made in like the 2010s almost.
Mm.
It's almost
Yeah, no, it's fucking based. It's on point. That's a scary character, and it's weird. I do love that character from the original Texas Chainsaws, the weirdo brother who was just cutting
yeah.
himself in the van and stuff. He's all Matthew McConaughey played him once, I think. Like
Yeah, he
that's a
did.
really cool character, and that he played the true to form character. But this one is a good. I think it's a good update. It's
Yeah.
very fucking scary and unexpected.
Yeah.
Um, Leatherface, I think, is fine here too. I really don't know exactly where to start. Um,
Me neither. We're just going with it.
yeah, we placed it within context, though. This film, I think, is an important film, and why I always say that Wrong Turn was the big move because there's still a remnant of like teen melodrama, which like Kevin
Yeah.
Williamson style helped define horror. And I think it's what most horror purists hate most about postmodern horror is that there's a lot of teen melodrama in it.
Mm.
In Wrong Turn, there is that teen melodrama, and then it's clearly also being abandoned at the same time. That's not apparent here. That's not visible at all here. The only teen melodrama we really get is well, I mean, they're smuggling drugs across
Yeah,
the
they're going
country or
to
something.
a Leonard Skinner concert with drugs that they're planning
And
to sell at the concert.
the only piece of melodrama you could possibly say is there is when Eric Balfour's character, who I guess Eric Balfour is actually okay. I like him in 6 Feet Under, and we know
Oh
him
no, I
from
think
like the
everyone.
very first episode of Buffy. So we're
Oh my
happy with that
God!
dude. Yeah, he's
I
like the
didn't
first
realize it.
guy. His name's
Oh,
like
I thought
Jesse
he
on
looked
there or something.
familiar. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
he's
like the first
Jesse.
one who turns.
I remember fixating on his character in Buffy as a teenager because I remember thinking like it's really fucked up that Xander's like longtime best friend dies in the first episode and
That
he
was him.
never brings it up again. Oh, that's
That was
brutal.
him.
Oh, that makes
Um,
sense. That makes sense.
to me, he's like I don't know, like Devon Sawa levels of like he defines the early 2000s as well. He was in a lot of
Yeah, he
shit
just
back
has
then.
that face. He
He
just has
does.
that
He
face.
has
He has
that
a
new metal
2000s
face.
face. He has a
um,
face like someone who only existed between the years 2000 and
it's
2009.
it's a pretty fucking punchable face. I'm not gonna lie. It's weird. He does those. He does those characters fine. I don't know, what was I saying about Eric Balfour anyway. Oh, the only part of melodrama that's there is like
Yeah, the
when
ring,
she's like,
right?
you can give me a ring, and he's like, I'll get it to you one day, baby. Yeah, I don't
And it
get
turns
that.
out he had one. He had one.
He did. And she
You
never
don't
even sees it. It's just for
know.
us to see the tragedy and
It's
identify it as
tragic.
such. Or, I
So
mean,
sad.
yeah, I'm not going to step over the line and say see, they're consciously getting rid of teen melodrama. They're not.
No.
That's just something that
I mean,
makes you
sometimes
care.
these things
That's a
just work
save.
out, but
That's to really make sure you care about Eric Balfour. We talk about those
yeah.
save the cat moments in slasher movies, the moment where like an unlikable character does something nice, but he did a couple nice things. He did like
Well,
Jessica Biel is responsible for every fucking death in this movie, but
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot this era, like people like to say like the characters are always hateable. I don't hate any of these people, but I
no,
don't know.
no, no, no,
They're kind of just normal people.
no.
But
We're talking about Jessica Biel last because I feel like I'm not going into it right now. Jessica Biel's amazing. But I think these are all like fine people. What Jonathan Tucker character? I really hope that's his name, and I'm not just making it up. But that character was maybe grating. I don't know. They're not as likable as the postmodern characters were, in my opinion. But
yeah,
then I read pieces saying that those were all unlikable characters too. Like
yeah.
apparently Randy Meeks is one of the most hated characters in horror movies, and I'm like, really? I thought he was wonderful. Okay,
Well,
that's just a bunch of self hate from cinephiles, but.
yeah. I don't know. My relationship to this era of horror is that it's like the horror I was conscious of existing, but I didn't watch as like a kid and younger teenager. So I don't know. I tend to sympathize with these characters more because I'm like, I don't know, it's a pretty shitty situation. Like that was
Yeah,
my mentality as a teenager. Was I was like, this is pretty shitty. I don't hate them. I don't know.
it's not lambs to the slaughter type of, yeah, the stuff that happens to them is way too ultra violent not to care at all. It's like really, like they go hard. Hardest death is probably the blonde haired dude.
Yeah,
Like,
that's rough. That's rough.
like
I
he he
I
lives
would
for almost half the movie on a spike, like hanging from a, Jesus Christ. And then Jessica Biel has to kill him. I forgot. Like
yeah.
he's like, put me out of my misery. You can, ooh, Jesus Christ.
Actually, one thing I was thinking about while watching this is one thing that does separate this from the movies it's trying to emulate is that this movie doesn't really have a sense of humor. Um,
No,
compared
any
to its influences. I mean,
I, I feel like the Jonathan Tucker character was supposed to be comedic relief, but he was
sort
not
of,
at
but
all.
no, just
The
because
dialogue, we could have wrote this movie like easily.
we
Like I
should
remember
have.
his big joke is, did you know that like people get STDs every
Yeah.
single day? And then Eric Balfour follows it up with, why are you the expert on the world's dumbest shit? And they all laugh. It's like, whoa, this is dialogue. We're past Kevin Williamson. We're past the need for any sort of good dialogue.
Well,
Um,
I feel like the comedy in like say the original Texas Chainsaw is mostly situational comedy. Like
that
because
fucker
Hooper
in the
can
wheelchair is funny as shit.
he is, and Hooper
Franklin?
who
Is that his
yeah,
name?
Franklin. His name is Franklin.
Oh, I'm so happy I remember it.
He's Sally's brother. But
That's who Jonathan Tucker is in this movie. Yeah.
sort of, yeah, sort of. I could see that. Yeah, he fulfills that role pretty well, actually. He does.
Yeah.
Anyway, but no, for Hooper, Texas Chainsaw is like sort of a comedy to him. Like he was like, no one picked up on that, of course, when it came out because it's a psychotic movie. But he was like, for him, he's like the funniest part of the movie for me is that they're taking Sally in, all these kids are dead, and there's like bodies everywhere. And the older brother, the gas station guy, he comes in and he looks at Leatherface and he looks at the door and he's like, you broke the fucking door. And he like there aren't because his little brother broke the door while he was at work and now he has to deal with it. And he's like, this is bullshit. But like there's dead children on the ground, like there's teenagers dead. And I think you only get like it's supposed to be like psychopaths acting normal in like a ridiculous situation, but you only get one moment of that I think in this movie, and I did laugh when it happens, and it's when Jessica Biel like cuts off Leatherface's arm, and then he struggles like a child to pick it
Right.
up because it's
But
like
that's not even
rotating.
funny. It's not even funny in this
It was
movie.
funny to me. I laughed. That was the one part where I was like, all right, that's something Toby Hooper would do is like Leatherface can't get his arm because it's spinning with a chainsaw like a Beyblade on the ground. I thought that was pretty funny. That's the only time I laughed in this movie though. Otherwise it's pretty morbid and humorless, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. There might be some black comedy to that moment, but even the
Yeah,
filmmaking of it is like,
they cut through it way too fast. They needed to linger
yeah.
on it. They needed to linger on it. It would have hit a little harder, but
Although
I
I
doubt
will
anyone
say,
laughed.
we'll go death by death in a second. Okay.
Of course.
I will talk about the elephant in the room, which is Jessica Biel. I'm gonna. This is a gross man o'clock. Skip 30 seconds to like evade this part. The true flaw in this movie is that Jessica Biel is so hot. I find it pretty distracting. Um, and they should have probably dropped the hammer on her 30 minutes in instead of her boyfriend, so I could probably focus without my lizard brain interfering because of like how obscenely she fills out that tank top and jeans. I mean, it's a flaw. It's a flaw. Okay, we're back. Gross man hour is over. I've addressed the Jessica Biel-sized elephant in this room, and we can
Michael
move
Bay
on.
was involved. Michael Bay was involved.
Okay, it's kind of sketchy listening to the commentary. I'm going to be real.
Oh well,
'Cause the
this is something.
producers were like, we were looking to cast the lead of the movie, and we told this like agency, yeah, we're going to a Lakers game. Just bring a girl we never met before. And they brought Jessica, and she was just so incredible. And we spent all night hanging out with her. I'm like, this sounds so fucking weird, guys. Guys,
You
chill.
On Michael Bay though, because you mentioned before I watched it, because I hadn't seen this, that Michael Bay was involved. I feel like I didn't really see much of him in this, or at least as much, maybe not as much as I wanted. Um,
I feel like that was deliberate. I feel like
yeah,
Michael knew. If you listen to Michael Bay, he'll say, "I really wanted to be involved in something with a minimal budget," and it's
yeah.
like, "Oh, sure, this is a minimal. This looks like fucking Transformers compared to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre in quality and quantity."
And I think that's why it ends up having less of a scope compared to the original, because this is very much a studio product, whereas the
Very
original
much
is like
so.
a guy working 27-hour days and everyone hates him and it's 115 degrees and like that kind of context kind of lends a purity to the experience of the film. That's why it
Absolutely.
has like such a broad range of interpretations. Whereas I feel the most you can get out of it is that like it affects like reflects like the political climate. But
I think you're absolutely right.
yeah,
And just to like make it
which isn't
clear,
bad, but
it's fine. Yeah, like Jessica Biel's hotness might distract me, but I think she's a great final girl. I think it's pretty iconic. She's iconic 2000s final girl if you were to make
she's
like a
very compelling
list.
in this. She's very
Very
good in this.
her best performance, honestly.
Uh,
Um,
One thing about it though, and I hate I should probably stop doing this, like referring back to Hooper, but it's the fact that this movie like
you have to.
reflects on Hooper so much because it's interacting with his film so much, is that the original the idea is that like you don't actually know Sally's the main character until the last like 45 minutes or like
True. It's
the
very
last like
clear that Jessica's the main character too, but I
yeah
also think it's like at this it's like prime
it's
Jessica Biel. Like
inescapable.
you can't have a camera. The camera will just gravitate to her anyway. Like
Yeah
it'll
yeah
just happen. Like
so it's
put
like
fucking
a
Jessica Biel in this movie as an every girl or something. I don't know. It's impossible to interpret. But our first
it's
death is definitely that hitchhiker lady. My only
yeah it's
real
brutal.
question is like where she pulls the gun out of.
I mean, I think we know, but
I
it's
think I
pretty
know too, but I
grotesque.
heard
It's
that
pretty
part on the
grotesque.
commentary, and Misspell was like, people always think she pulls the vagina out of someplace she doesn't. I just think she's sitting on it, you know? I'm like,
Yeah,
how? How?
it's a pretty like grotesque like decision. It actually was kind of a red flag for me when I was watching it because I was like, is this the kind of movie this is gonna be? Because if so, I don't know if I want to finish it. Like,
Well, we're about
yeah,
to enter into the age of zombie where he just fetishizes like
not
PTSD
even
and sexual
zombie would do
torture.
this. Not even zombie would do
Really?
this. Yeah, and I said I've seen Devil's Rejects like 5 times,
I think zombie would do worse and did do worse. But
but
this is
no,
the
this is
era.
pretty bad.
I mean, I think that's back to exploitation basics too. That's
Yeah, it's a different kind of exploitation from the past because like the exploitation of the 80s was just to show someone topless. The exploitation of the 2000s is like how can you desecrate a living person's body? It's really fucked up stuff in this decade. Like more than I think I realize sometimes when I go back to these movies. It's a really
that's probably you can tell it's such a studio project too, because now you mention it, there's no nudity in the movie either, but we go through all the
no.
exploitation basics. You
No,
check
because this
off
would
every box but direct sexualization
yeah,
or
because this needs to be on
eroticism,
TV.
I should
This
say.
is going to be on TV. It's going to be on
Exactly.
AMC. It's going to be yeah, so they can't have any of that, but the brutality is fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's this is why I think it's so reflective of the time it was made, probably more than anything else because like House of a Thousand Corpses is just a bizarre movie. I really like that movie, but it's like bizarre and it's not really reflective of trends.
It's
This
a
is very
fucking vanity
reflective.
project, just like
Yeah,
every other movie he's
it's
ever
a
made.
it's a music video, but this is
Yes.
like pretty reflective of what spawned it.
No,
It's
absolutely.
yeah, it's really
And
yeah. Like you get it because like that first death is really for all intents and purposes an upsetting scene and it's done with like a Michael Bay fade through the hole in the head like
yes.
CG long take and I'm like this man like I think I said it before we started recording but I said I have like a morbid curiosity towards like Michael Bay's lizard brain like I think Bad
There it
Boys
is. You
2
saw it.
yeah, Bad Boys 2 is like one of the most psychotic movies ever made. That is a like insane movie, and this is like has that energy. This is the part where I was like, okay, I kind of see Michael Bay in this part. because that is
And
a
it's kind
Michael
of
Bay
absurd
decision.
to watch. Like if I rewound it a couple times and focused on each of the different characters, like reactions to it as it's pulling back through her like blown off brain, and they're all doing the same like 2 second reaction just on repeat as if they're animatronics. It's
It's
fucking
like
ridiculous.
the Friends or like sitcom like reaction shot while you fade to black. Like
Yeah,
that it's really silly. It's like there's some humor in it, like the fact that like half of the movie revolves around how are we getting rid of this body so we can go to a concert. Like there's that kind of energy, but they don't really like lean into
yeah. I
that,
don't.
and
Yeah,
so
I
it
don't
just
think that's.
comes off like
I don't think that's humor. I think that's a
weird.
lazy way to like tack on a time period.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
all.
You would someone else would make that into kind of like some kind of macabre joke, but here it's just like it's like a really depressing situation.
There were a bunch
So
of opportunities to give Jonathan Tucker great jokes about like which is more important, Leonard Skinner or this chick, and he does like say
they
it a
play it
little bit,
straight.
but it's played so straight, and he's drooling all over himself, and it's pretty intense.
Well, and like in context, it's not because he like actually prefers the concerts because he's sick of having like he's afraid of the situation. So it's like it's all played like very straight. It's I hesitate to say realistic reactions, but like it's like more authentic reactions than what you would expect out of like something like Friday the 13th, like the original movies. They would be
Yeah,
like,
and it's definitely not a postmodern reaction either.
no, it's
I
not.
think that's the point of it.
That's why this is such a bizarre like aesthetic for a movie. It's just weird, right? It's
It
like
is.
it's people paying to see a movie that's like actually just sad to watch, and it's supposed to be like a summer blockbuster by the
I think that was the draw of horror again. Horror was once again, I don't know. Was once
they
again like lacking any self-awareness though. That's why I look at it as like a step back. Like we've overcome all of these weird obstacles, but we have to go back now
they do
because
kind
real
of
life got too heavy. Sorry.
no good.
No, because real life got too heavy, and now like horror almost becomes escapist. Like there is a mirror here. Um, I just wish it was more aggravating about making the audience confront that it's a mirror and not a window, like an escape.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I agree. I very much
But
agree.
the next kill is like ripped almost directly from Texas Chainsaw Massacre original.
That's
Eric
the
Balfour going through
yeah.
the house, and we get that iconic. It's not done even half as well as the
No,
original,
no.
but you get the hammer in the back of his head, and he drags him through this big steel door and slams it shut, just like in the original film.
It's just done in like much quicker, much closer. Uh, like the original, you see like the body twitch after he does it.
Yeah.
Like it's really grotesque. And then here it's kind of just like over in 5 seconds flat. You kind of almost miss it. Yeah. I mean, it's I guess the only effect there is that like I actually liked his character probably more
Yeah,
than
the only
anyone.
effect there is that it's like a minor psychoing of it. Like, no one, he's definitely the second most compelling character of the entire movie still. It's
Mhm.
just Jessica Biel and him are the only two characters who I think are really that compelling.
Yeah, I actually thought he was the most. I kind of wished he lasted longer.
He was the biggest save the cat character ever because he throws the pinata full of drugs away. He's secretly got a ring. He's
Yeah,
like listening to his girlfriend. He's like Mr. Good Boyfriend here. It's fucking crazy.
yeah,
Does
like yeah, no, he's just like an unambiguously like good person for the most part, and
like he's going through a character arc. I wish we could have seen his little tale, his
it's
story.
like a little short film within a film, and where like he has his arc, it starts, he ends, and then he dies, and then you got the rest of the like next hour and a half of the movie. But
With Jessica Biel and a couple, like I'm gonna say, kind of unlikable people. Uh, I like the blonde guy though, but he doesn't really.
he has a
He,
cool death.
he has the best death, but like his only characterization is he's like really horny and he cares about his bro, like, which is
Who
fine.
among us? Who among
Who
us can't
among
say
us?
the
I mean,
same?
I miss characters that are like that. And thinking back to my postmodernist kills, and they're all like nice guys and fucking like they have clear and serious problems. Um, let's see. I mean, blonde guy is next. I think it actually is pretty beautiful when he's
It's
running
pretty
through.
rad. It's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's
Um,
beautifully captured, running through those. What's the terminology? Like the clothes on the clothespins.
yeah,
What
just
is it called?
laundry, just laundry,
Just running
hanging
through
clothes.
they're all a bunch of white sheets, and he's like running through them away from Leatherface, and it's already
I
been a pretty intense escape from the house, and he gets his fucking leg cut off, and you see this really kind of gorgeous blood on on these white drapes just hanging there, and it's
it's
actually gorgeous.
like the Tenebra shot. It's
It
pretty
really
nice.
is.
Well, I actually, because I was thinking about this, how in this movie you never really fully understand like the space they're navigating. Like you don't really get a
Yeah,
good sense of like the layout of the house. You don't get a good sense of like all these places they're running to in proximity to each other. So every scene ends up having to be very self-contained to like the room it's in or like the 10-foot space it's in. It's not really good at helping you understand where things are, but like I think they really lean into that in that scene because it's a scene where the death, it's like you don't know where up and down are. He's just running through sheets. I'm pretty
yeah, and
sure Leatherface teleports. Like,
I think that was deliberate too. I think it's moving back to the days where like spatial impossibilities were certainly a facet of horror.
yeah, I
And
agree.
I think if we watched it again, there's certain parts of that house that just don't add up, don't make sense,
Yeah, I
like
have
that
no
are
idea
just
how big it
impossible.
is. I
Yeah,
have no idea.
I think it's all a spatial impossibility, and I think that kind of probably makes the audience. It gives it a more intense feel because when Jessica Biel is breaking out later, it's like she's crawling through a city under there. Like it's massive, and it's just full of the most disgusting and gross and disease infected shit in the world.
Yeah, it's really confusing, but I can't say for certain how intentional it is. I think part of it is just like the aesthetics, like the way they shoot
Well, if I
death
could
in
say
this
anything about
movie.
Michael Bay, I don't know Nispo as well. I do like his Friday the 13th remake, but I don't really remember how he worked with space in that movie. But Michael Bay is probably one of the most like dishonest filmmakers, like on a technical level. I think that's how he gets away with most of his shit.
I'd agree, but I'd call that like a good thing to
No, I'm
some
calling it a
extent.
good thing
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Like don't apply like morality to me saying it's dishonest. I mean, like he's showing us the size of an asteroid and then playing with the size of that asteroid, like essentially.
yeah.
Like he gives you a defined sense of space and then betrays your trust about it. Like I think he does that with every one of his movies, especially with
It's
shootouts
because
and everything.
oh yeah, yeah. That's what I was gonna say is like the shootouts in Bad Boys 2. It's more about like the effect than it
Mm-hmm.
is about like understanding. He's not like I don't know who you would think of as like a good action director space, like John McTiernan. John McTiernan's very good with space. Compare Bad Boys 2 to like any scene in Bad Boys 2 to like Die
Yeah,
Hard. It's the very different, very different. Like Bad Boys 2, it's all about like how can I overwhelm the senses as much as possible, and that definitely
and
translates
that's
here.
what I
But
think that Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003
yeah,
does is overwhelm the senses because it can get pretty fucking intense. We can go on with kills, or did we want to take time out to just talk about Leatherface in general?
Leatherface is kind of just here. He's Leatherface. He's doing his thing. He's much less of a threat, I feel here. I mean, mostly because I've more attention is given to like Arlie Ermy and the other people of this quote unquote community. You know?
I mean, I think the return really starts like just like they say that modern horror starts with Leatherface with the hammer back in the 70s. I think that the return starts with him as well here. It's not like massive or like massively significant kind of moment. It's just like
No, I know what you mean.
just like how we felt when Michael Myers appeared in postmodernism and made it legitimate. I think that seeing Leatherface here is making this new movement legitimate, and I think it
Mm.
did him fine. Like you said, he's not
Yeah.
the focus, but he is the last thing. He's the thing we leave the film on. But like that's because of his built-in persona, probably. But he's still a pretty terrifying guy. I think he does all the kills as well.
Does he?
I think
Yeah.
so. Like,
Yeah, I
except
think
for the
so.
one that
Well,
Jessica Biel had to
yeah,
put
I
out
was
of.
gonna say.
This is all Jessica Biel's fault, man. This is all her. Like, she's like, we can't be driving. We have to stay here until a cop comes, and then we can't leave until we find my boyfriend, and then some other shit, I'm sure.
I mean, I agree with those decisions, but to a point. But
Well, back to the return. We are punishing sincerity, and we would
yeah.
that
Fair
kind of
enough. Fair
thing. But
enough.
the next
Fair
death is
enough.
as the redhead, but it comes after the scene I think is like the most intense and has nothing to do with Leatherface. It's Arlie Ermy playing Leatherface's brother, and it's when he comes back to the car, and it's just Jonathan Tucker, Jessica Biel, and the redhead girl. And he's got like it's like you said, like a scene out of 2010s horror, because he's like doing everything that's like cop scary in this scene. He's got
He's an
them like
evil
on the
cop.
ground.
He's
It's like
planning. He's,
so much brutal. Like it's just actually completely petrifying scene. And Arlie Ermy is doing so fucking well, so well throughout this entire of this torturing these kids, humiliating these kids, having his
no, he
crazy
really
power
chews it
trip.
up. He chews it up a
I
lot.
love it though. He's doing it so well. Like when he has Jonathan Tucker in the back of the van, and Jonathan
What is
Tucker
he?
does the thing that we're all screaming at him to do, which is turn the gun on him and shoot him, but he pulls the trigger and it's empty. Then Arlie Ermy pulls his loaded gun on him. It's like the biggest oh fuck moment I can think of. Oh my
I actually
god.
thought he was gonna kill him, but that would have been
Yeah.
cool if like they shifted the focus away from Leatherface. But kind of
Uh,
yeah.
they did for this scene, and this scene to me is it's probably the most intense or scariest scene in the film for me, because it's probably the most believable. I
Yeah,
believe this is certainly capable of some backwoods fucking so-called sheriffs, I'm sure. uh
yeah.
it's a scary fucking scene. And then he puts Jonathan Tucker in the back of his car because he's taking like special interest in torturing him, and like just breaks a fucking like whiskey bottle over his face,
Yeah,
and like
what I was gonna ask, what was the cause of that? What did he say?
what
Oh,
the
I
fuck did
remember.
he say? Oh, you can
It's
have my tickets,
tickets.
right?
Yeah, and he's like, "Is that bribery?" And he smacks him with a bottle and breaks
Because
his
he is
teeth.
cosplaying so well. I think I don't know if they show it in the beginning, but he's obviously not a cop. He killed a cop and took his car in uniform.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's awesome. Oh my god. No, Arlie Ermy did really well, and I'm glad we didn't go with the manic brother thing. I like that character a lot, but maybe he
Oh, I
doesn't
love that
belong in
character.
the return. He might not belong in the return. He would overshadow Leatherface if they cast anybody of note. Like Matthew McConaughey would, like just like the
Yeah,
that movie
yeah.
did.
He is good in Texas Chainsaw too, but
I have I have weirdness with that one. I think most people have weirdness with that one.
I like
The
it. I think it's great.
the yeah, the Hopper film, right?
Yeah,
It's a
Hooper,
bit
Toby
much.
Hooper.
No, I mean
Oh yeah,
Dennis
yeah,
Hopper.
Hopper's in it. Yeah. No, it's a weird one. It's I believe the idea behind it was people didn't realize the first one was a comedy, so I leaned into it
Yeah.
so they caught the joke this time.
If it
Um,
was a comedy, he failed at making a comedy. I'm just gonna say that.
I don't know. I think it's
It's
pretty
a
funny.
wonderful film. It's a wonderful film.
I love
Like
the
I said, it's one of my favorite horror films, and nothing bad to say about it unless we're rating it as a comedy.
you got one choice, boy, the sex or the saw. It's funny. It's anyway. No, that actor would be kind of weird in this.
But Redhead's next. The
Non-death.
like
Kind of
yeah,
just
exactly. The chase out of the van's interesting, and once again, I blame Jessica Biel, because she's like, "Get out! You run! You distract him or something," and she does and gets caught.
I will say so for clarification, I think you watched the theatrical cut and I watched the unrated cut. I doubt there was any difference in that death between our versions. Like even in my version, like it looked like a censored death. Like she just dies off screen
Yeah,
basically.
he stands over her. You see like the
You don't even see
stuffing coming
her.
out of her jacket. Yeah, you
Yeah,
don't see her. You see the stuffing coming out of her jacket. I think some sort of shit is flying. There's not even blood.
yeah.
But then Jessica Biel gets good old kidnapped. We're back to
hmm
their house. You see that Arlie Ermy is the brother. I guess if they make that clear, I don't actually remember. I just know that he's the brother. I know he's there in like one family scene. I don't even know if Arlie Ermy has a scene directly with Leatherface. I can't exactly remember. I don't I thought these deaths were pretty good though. But of course, like after the fluffing, because the blonde dude we talked about is not dead.
Yeah.
They punish him. He gets punished, which sucks. I think he's actually the character with the least amount of character. His humanity comes out during the torturing of him. It's
It is
fucking
kind of
crazy.
funny it was him that lives long and not her boyfriend.
Yeah,
Like he's the one she tragically has to kill. This guy she doesn't really talk too much throughout the movie. And
I
not
prefer it because you know that Eric Balfour would have been like, I wanted to ask you to marry me, baby.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't have liked that. I'm just surprised they didn't think that because I figured like Michael Bay would have thought of that and been like, "Oh, that's so fucking poetic. That's God, it's
No,
beautiful."
I can also see Michael Bay going, you know why Scream's not scary? It's boyfriend bullshit. I can see him saying that, just like it.
Maybe. Also, I don't know what Nispel's plans are. This is the problem. I'm going mostly off of Michael Bay, not off Nispel,
Well, Michael Bay is like,
which is
he
funny.
has such a strong vision that it's difficult to talk about certain filmmakers without talking about him. Plus, there's not much to go off of with Nispel. Most of what he does is directly connected to Michael Bay producing. And I know that Michael Bay produces in a very hands-on, dare I say, David O. Selznick kind of way. Like
Yeah.
it's partly his movie. Uh,
And well,
like I
one
can't look at
thing
Conan and know what the fuck Nispel wants. I have no idea.
I'd have to watch more. I'd have to watch like the Friday the 13th and Conan. I don't know if I'll watch
But
Conan. I
then
might.
again, Friday the 13th is Michael Bay produced.
Well, one thing I just like know is like a creative decision, and I don't know who to like give this credit to. But just like the way this is structured, because I was trying to figure out why this feels like longer. I mean, obviously it's longer, but I mean like more the way they're protracting it compared to the original situations, and it's kind of they try to mask these episodes. Like it's a lot of little episodes where the
I get what you're saying. It's
yeah,
like now
self-contained
we're going into the
problems.
house, but now there's this problem, and now we're going to this place, but now the car won't start.
Yeah, or like yeah, the car won't start is where I started to pick up on that, but also like the like a huge chunk of the movie is we got a body, how do we get rid of the body? And then they finally solve that problem and then a new unrelated problem introduced. So it's like these little episodes of problem solving, which I think goes hand in hand with the fact that there's like no sense of space in this movie. So it's like you just have to make every section and set piece individual, and that's how he like creates a
Exactly.
flow. So I don't know, identified not necessarily as like a good or bad thing, it's just like a creative decision I noticed. So but I don't really know if that's a Bay or a Nispel thing, or if that Jessica Biel was like, hey, what if we did this on set and they just went with it. I don't know what happened during the main is is
Whatever you
Jessica.
want, Jessica.
Yeah, she's the author of this movie. She might as well be, but
She is. The movie
actually no.
bends and breaks at her will.
Eric Balfour is the author of this movie.
Oh, that chin is the auteur of this movie.
He's really. I also lots of God rays in this movie. Lots of God rays in this movie. So much. Every time. So every time they went into the woods, I felt like I was watching like the 40s Wolfman with like where it's like
Right.
clearly a set, but you see like the smoke coming out, and you're like, this looks fake, but it also looks fucking amazing. It had or like Toby Hooper's Eaten Alive, which also takes place on a soundstage, but like they just fill it with fog and lights and colors, and you're like, this looks really fake compared to everything else, but I love it. It's it's like they're walking around the house and it's like broad daylight and everything looks normal. Then Jessica Biel walks like 10 feet to the left and suddenly she's in like this magic forest with god rays
Yeah, I
everywhere.
did want to talk. I think that if you're listening right now and there was like a weird jump in the recording, it's because my internet sucks and we had to get back and get re-recorded. I do think I was actually talking about part of the when Jessica Biel's running away after Leatherface kills the redhead, she ends up. And this is maybe where, because I like how nihilistic Texas Chainsaw Massacre original is. This one
Yeah,
does clearly add very particular morality to this movie when she like
yeah,
runs into the trailer park in that trailer with like more of Leatherface's kin, I guess, and like they have a baby and they're like
yes, the
drugging her.
baby. The baby, the
Yeah,
baby,
the
the
baby
baby.
is the moral compass of this film. It turns into a save the baby film, which is kind of
Yeah,
weird,
because in the
very
original,
weird.
Sally is just some teenager, and she only survives. She doesn't really have any of the like the Laurie Strode tropes. Like
No,
she just survives because she happens to be the
she's
one that
almost
got lucky.
she has lucky. She has luck.
Yeah, she just, and
Um,
then you find out in Texas Chainsaw 2, they're like, yep, then they locked her up and she died like 5 years later. And like that's the story of Sally. It's just she got lucky, she lived for a little while, then she went crazy. Like it sucks. This is like that kind of
this
shit
is
doesn't
forcing
fly.
your final. That's once again. I'm gonna go to postmodernism. I love what we did to the final girl during postmodernism. We allowed her to be like, um, not a morally ambiguous, but like not virginal, not like this kind of like this statue of just moral fortitude,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
nothing like that. Whereas now our final girl is uh, like so so stripped back to basics that she's like maternal, that she's like
No, she's even
this
more than
virgin
the
mother.
originals. Yeah, she's more than the originals. This is why I actually like, I'm not really for the 90s or the 2000s mode of it. I gravitate towards the 70s where it's just like random, but like, cause like
But I
not
like it
even,
how like
yeah,
Williamson's final girls, fucking Julie and Sydney, are both deliberately deflowered in both movies and both deliberately stronger as an like result of it too.
yeah, they come out like empowered at the end. There's some
Like
kind of,
you put it really well. Like they invert the tropes that they see fit to invert. Like when they
yeah.
need to weaponize a trope, they will weaponize it. Like it's kind of fucking wild. Here it's like 500 steps back, like you're saying. We're going even pre-70s final girl here.
Yeah, because like again, Sally just got a horrible deal. Lori is like a good person, but like it's that she doesn't like do anything outrageous. Like she tries to help kids, but that's because she's a babysitter and she has two kids with her and there's a guy outside with a knife. Like it's all within reason, but like this is literally like they're going straight to all of her friends are dead now. She has to be a superhero for the last like act of
Mm-hmm.
this movie and she has
She
to
has a
kill.
fucking moral crusade at the end of this film.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very 2000s, which again is why I think like the conditions this was made under inherently make it like less broad in its scope than like
Yeah,
something made by a guy for shoestring budget with people who are willing to toil away for hours with him. Like this is a controlled product comparatively, so
yeah.
it's very interesting. Just not necessarily good or bad to me. It's just like a curiosity. It's the way it pans out. It's so different, especially
I
given
think
how
yeah,
cruel it is. How cruel it
it
is, and they
is.
still
It
need to
is.
make it like a superhero movie in the last second. Because like she just watched her friends die, her boyfriend's dead, everyone's dead, and she goes straight to I'm going to run over a cop and like kidnap a baby to save or like save a kidnapped baby, right?
Exactly.
It's
And the
crazy.
baby
It's
was really
crazy.
what this film is actually about. Because even from the beginning, we look at the picture of the family with the baby, and I think one of them even questions, or at least it's implied that the audience should question where the baby is or whatever.
Oh, I
Like,
didn't. I could not like differentiate. I'm sure I was supposed to, but I didn't. I was just kind of like, I guess they're all dead, but I don't know.
like a pretty
It's
morbid reading could be that, like in the '70s, we still viewed teenagers as teenagers, and now they've become so
yeah,
yeah
they're
that the only actual children are babies. I don't know, because we
well,
should care about each of these kids as kids. I know they're in college, but they're probably still 19, 20. They're
yeah, yeah,
supposed to.
and this is like my thing again, like growing up or as at least as a teenager, people always described horror movie like teenagers like you always just want to see them die. I'm like, I don't know, they're just
No,
teenagers. I hate teenagers too, but like I don't want to see them get like it's like I even watch movies like last year I watched Friday the 13th Final Chapter, the fourth one. I'm like, yeah,
that's
they
the best one.
suck, but like I don't want to see them die. Like
No,
if it makes me feel bad when they die, like I don't know about you. I don't think that's like a source of entertainment for me necessarily. Just like I feel bad about it. I relate to
no,
them.
it's not a source of entertainment seeing them punished, but like everyone enjoys a good
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
death.
It's
But
a
I'd
there's a
rather see
distinction.
Crispin Glover dance for 2 hours than see him die once, though. That was
Yeah, yeah, like
Final Chapter is beautiful, but
no, that was more. Yeah, it's a great movie. I really, really enjoy it.
sometimes they
But
deliberately put in asshole characters that you do want to see die, but it's normally like one, and none of them were in this one. Like Friday the 13th has a character you unequivocally want to see punished completely.
does
Like
it?
one of the
Yeah.
most like notoriously hateable characters. Um, I
And
think
I
a lot
guess
of movies have that. Yeah.
I think we've kind of moved out of that, but that's because we've kind of like we're kind of like in this weird post slasher territory with horror right now, where it kind of like interacts with the tropes of slashers, but they're not
Yeah.
really slashers anymore. For the most part, it's more like, in a way, it's like more like horror about like families and communities right now, instead of like just
Yawn.
yeah, right. I don't care about family. Oh well,
You know
this
what
movie
cares
is
about
kind of about
family?
family,
Jessica
but
Biel cares about family.
yeah, this is like weirdly about family.
And it's that mirror thing. Like it's almost like the final girl, or like we have to preserve the true identity or the future of America and not become this like mirror version of ourselves during
which
the
is
Iraq War.
which is weird because the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre says, no, this is our,
Exactly.
we are, you are Leatherface. Everyone is Leatherface. No one cares. It's Leatherface is like our psyche. Leatherface, yeah, Leatherface is like the best, the ultimate American. Leatherface, you know, it's great. And then this, it's like he's more an aberration.
Absolutely.
He's something to be conquered, and which I guess that makes sense because at this
It
point,
makes
again,
sense, yeah, within the context
Iraq.
of it and when it was made. Yeah, like
We got to overcome this. We're better than this, you know. It's like, no, we're not. It's like this is exactly what we do. This is so
exactly.
in a way this is less cynical than that, I guess. With that in mind, this is very not cynical because it implies some like, you know, ability to overcome or do the right thing in this situation, which is
But she goes
pretty.
the extra mile to save that baby. Me
Yeah,
personally,
you
I would have
can.
been, well, that baby's fucked. I don't know what to do. I can't help
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
baby.
like like the cosmic horror solution would be like, well, you never saw the baby again. You're like, is it dead? It's like, it might be. I don't know. Like, you just don't know. And then this one is like, no, we can save the baby. Yeah,
God, they refused from us the Leatherface's baby trilogy we all deserved.
I think Leatherface is great in the other movies though. Like he's a very like well-rounded character, more than I think people remember. Because like you watch the original one and he kills
Well, I
the
wish he was
first guy.
wearing that shitty ass suit. I
Yeah,
love
that's
that
I
suit
love
from
the
the first
suit.
one. God damn.
Um, he
One of the most
he kills
beautiful
the
moments ever filmed is him at the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre with that chainsaw in the sun just
Yes, it's
going
so
around in
beautiful.
circles. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. But yeah,
But
sorry, go on.
oh no, I was just gonna say earlier in the movie because that's my like maybe my favorite scene in any movie. But earlier in the movie, he kills the first guy, and you immediately get the, or maybe it's the second guy. But you immediately get the shot of him like pacing around the house. He goes and he sits down. He's shaking. He's like, because he's like in his head, he's like, oh shit, they're gonna be mad at me. Like my brother's gonna
Yeah,
be mad at me. He's
yeah,
gonna
that's
yell at
so
me.
good.
I'm in trouble. I did shit, which again is the Hooper thing of like everyone has a bad day. Like he made a mistake and now he's gonna get in trouble. He's upset. You get the same thing in Texas Chainsaw 2, which is that like they make fun of like his impotence in Texas, like because he makes a joke out of like the killer weapon in slashers is always like a phallus, because like they make a joke out of him for that. Like the chainsaw is a phallus, and so they're like
Yeah, yeah.
making fun of how he never had a girlfriend, and he's like, oh, you like the girl, and Leatherface is like, no, shut up, brother, no. Like it's funny. Like from the beginning, Leatherface was always kind of just a sad character who's just like his life sucks.
I
And
do like, at least in this remake, because one of the things I find probably equally empathetic and completely petrifying about Leatherface as a character are his like high pitched, like piggish kind of squeals
yeah,
that he
yeah,
does.
yeah,
He
it's
kind of
great.
does that in the remake. He kind of has it
A
every
little
once
bit,
in
a
a
little
while.
bit.
It just warmed my heart to hear it in the most like chilling possible way. But
Again, like the arm spinning on the ground, and you watch that, and you're like, hey man, we've all been like, you're like, yeah, bro, I'd be pretty annoyed too.
well, Jonathan Tucker gets it next and last. He lives for a little while.
Oh yeah,
Jessica
yeah, they
Biel's
really
gonna
lean into
save
him.
him. Yeah, I think he was like the other not big name at the time, but he was rising. He was in like The Ruins and a couple other movies.
If
But
there's a hierarchy of like characters who like we relate to and understand, it's like the boyfriend, then Jessica Biel, then this guy, and then the rest are just like throwaways. But
Jessica Biel too hot to be relatable. It's an issue.
fair enough.
But
You might not relate to her.
Jonathan Tucker,
Yeah.
that's a relatable face.
Yeah, because he's just he's a nerd, he's a stoner, he's just like a you know, everyone
Yep.
here has a girlfriend except for me. It's he's sad, like, or he's at least like just trying to live his best life, and everyone else is like out to get him.
I
It's
feel
rough.
you, Jonathan. I think that Jessica is trying to save him and like gets out of the house but into like a different house where
Yeah,
there's
it's like a
empty but
shed
a
or something.
chandelier. Yeah, once again, it's impossible to really determine space in this movie.
It looks like a tiny cabin inside, and then you go
Like when they
inside, and
say
it's
that
like
the sheriff wants you to go to the old mill, like I don't, I watched them go from the mill to the Hewitt's house, who are the Leatherface family house, and I still don't understand how close the mill is to the house. Like I
because
don't know.
it's because I think they say it's like 10 miles away at some point or like something to that effect, but then like they run between them at various points in the movie, so I don't
Jessica
know.
Biel goes back and forth between those two places like four times.
Yeah.
I get that she's in shape, but that's just impossible.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, it's I mean maybe through the magic of editing, but that still presumes like a 45-minute, you know, gap between every one of these scenes that I
hey,
don't think is taking place.
at least Michael Bay kept in the signature ass shot, though. We got that still.
Yeah, that was it. That was it. I saw that. I was like, "Hey, they did the thing." They
Of course they did the thing. I
I
just wish
wanted
that I
I
wish I could
wanted
have been there while they explained it to Jessica Biel. Like, oh no, it's a thing. It's a thing.
it's
We have
from
to
the
do this.
movie. I wanted my Michael Bay like gyrating camera shot. I wanted like a shot where like Leatherface is like scratching at a door, a closed door, and on the other side is Jessica Biel like propping something against it, and the camera goes around in it like through a window, so it goes inside and outside the house, like in Bad Boys 2. That's a shot I wanted, and I was very disappointed it never happened. So that's when I realized this wasn't a Michael Bay movie. This was a Nispel movie.
Well,
Michael
yes, misspelled,
Michael Bay
misspell.
Michael Bay wouldn't have let me down like that, but he
Michael
never
Bay
lets
still
me
didn't let
down,
you down.
didn't he? Uh, the
No,
the whole last leg of this movie after that death, though, I had no idea what was going to happen because that's when they stopped following the plot of the original and just went on their own thing. And
they
so
went on the
I
baby crusade. God damn it!
so I had no idea what was going to happen. I was just like, I'm here for the ride. Let's see how it goes. And they go to the slaughterhouse or whatever it is.
Yes,
Yeah,
which once again I don't space. No idea. And she like
no
hides in
idea.
lockers and stuff, and it's like pretty cool, pretty great. Actually, it's pretty intense.
It's kind
Um,
of weird because there's a lot of it's a big place that
Oh,
I
it
presume.
reminded me, like you said, it should have been. I'm sorry for cutting you off so
No, go
fucking
ahead.
much this
No,
conversation, but
no,
it
it's okay.
reminds me of those 2010s horror games like Outlast and Alien Isolation.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
how
it
much of
does.
hiding, and it does the POV from hiding inside the locker. It looks just like those games. Holy
It
shit, yeah.
does. It does. It does look like that. I can see that. I can see that. Even the setting, like the just the smoke, the
I was
factory.
getting
Yeah.
ready to follow the prompt to press X to hold my breath. I was ready.
But I was gonna say like it's this is a big place that I assume seems to employ a lot of people, but there's like 10 people in the whole town. Not I don't want to be like one of those
They're all
people. It was
related.
yeah, I don't want to be like one of those like CinemaSins people. That's not what I'm getting at. It just like I'm like I sincerely don't like understand the nature of this world to some extent
Well, I
where
think
it's
it's so contrived as to be a fantasy, which is fine. I think it works well
yeah,
as it's this fantasy universe where the only people that exist in this weird sector of Texas are like
these
fucking
people
primitive demon spawn, like mirror versions of yourself in a way. It works
because
as fantasy and contrived, and you're lost in it by that point anyway, because it's still
yeah, because
pretty
I didn't think
intense.
about this while watching.
Yeah,
I didn't think about it till afterwards. I was like, That's a pretty big factory for like a town that no one actually lives in.
And there were
Which I
actual like sticks of beef in there, like it was still being used.
Yeah, yeah, and which they explain in the original is that because like I think they shut down the factory in the original because they had the whole thing is that the family in the original was they worked at this place but then it went out of business and so they
Yeah,
or
I
like it
think that
was
happens here too, but in the beginning, I remember like Leatherface works there or something. I
yeah
don't remember.
he's a
Like,
working
I guess I
man.
don't remember. Yeah, he's a working
He's a
man, you know.
he's a blue he's a blue collar hero.
He's not fancy enough for
He's a
Michael's neighborhood.
he's a 9 to 5er. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing is Michael is the evil of suburbia, but this is like a very different kind of evil. Very
Yeah,
different
and
evil.
then I guess our finale's at a gas station, which once again I don't remember how I got from the fucking meat house to the gas station, but I'm there. I'm there
Yeah,
now.
you're there. You're there.
Oh yeah, the Jessica Biel thing, because they try to complicate her character. Like, how did you learn how to hotwire a car? And she's like, my
I
entire
went to
life spent
juvie.
in juvie.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's really
Like,
weird.
oh, okay, okay.
Then it's like, so what are you, fucking Zeke from the faculty now? I don't.
Yeah, it's not believable for a Biel character to be like, I was in juvie. I feel like an Eliza Dushku character could have done that.
It's more just because it's this out of pocket line that I think is expected to explain certain things, but yeah, I
But
don't
it's
know.
not. But it
It
explains none
doesn't.
of her behavior. It
Yeah, it
doesn't
doesn't
inform
inform
it.
our understanding. Yeah, exactly. It's a very weird moment. Very weird moment. I almost would have expected it more from the other girl, actually. Um,
Yeah, but they
the
needed
whole,
Jessica Biel to know how to hotwire cars so she could
yeah,
leave.
they need her to be, in giant quotes, resourceful because she's a horror lead, which is, I suppose, how it goes. But
Yeah, she's smart enough to outthwart everybody and hotwire these cars, but not smart enough to know she's driving with a pinata full of like 10 pounds of weed.
that actually stressed me out when they threw that away because I was like, damn, bro, that's a lot of money. I presume you
Yeah,
spent a lot of money on that and you just threw away.
it's framed as a big moment for Eric Balfour. I guess it
I
is.
I guess I don't know. I don't know. Their trip was fucked. But
Oh,
yeah,
honey, they gotta play Freebird. Like, dude, this dialogue is interesting. But what is it?
they
They're at
gotta
the
play.
gas station, and she could get away, but she wants to fucking take that baby and save it.
Hmm.
So she comes up. It's what you were saying with these like situational problems. Like, before we get away, we see the obstacle, and then we see like the goal is to get the baby, and it's like another little problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, it's purely like a checklist structure
Yes,
almost. It's just like it is like a video game actually. It's a bit like a video game. It's
it is.
you just have your short-term situations that you solve. It's like the those all that whole genre of games where like everything is like someone on a radio is telling you,
Yeah, I could.
you
This
know,
would be a
like
good game.
BioShock.
Hot wiring the car like a quick time event. It'd be a good
Oh,
game.
this reads like a licensed game from like the
It really
2010s.
does. I think you nailed it. And you're telling me there's no Michael Bay here?
Fair
Nah,
enough, fair enough, fair
everywhere.
enough.
But
If this was
anyways,
a real one, it would have like John Carpenter or like Iggy Pop narrating the opening. It's some like weird shit like that. Like
she
that,
does drive over Arlie Ermy once, and then backs over him, and then drives over him again on her way
yeah,
out. And
that
then
was good.
Leatherface does get the last thing when he like gets the side of her car. I was wanting him to like run around in circles in the middle of the street, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, well,
Um,
because it was raining, it was at night. That yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. This movie's just not very like I don't know what the word I'm looking for, maybe like elemental. But like
no,
it's
that's a good word.
yeah, it's in the same way. It's just scene by scene. That's it. It's totally efficient the way it's made. Like I can't really fault
Yeah.
anything about the way it's made. It's purely an efficient movie. But
And they bookend it with I mean, another trope that was going on, or another fad that was going on during the return, was found footage movies. And I think they bookended it on purpose like that, as a faux documentary.
yeah,
And the last things we see are like Leatherface's face, and they actually do say Leatherface in the movie. This is
they
the
do.
only known image of Leatherface. But they said
I
something
was
that really confused me at the beginning. They're like, this case is been kept in our
Unsolved.
cold case vault unsolved. And me and you have joked like we like some like 90s slasher whodunits as opposed to everyone knows it was Leatherface. Everyone knows Leatherface
Yeah,
killed those
yeah.
people. There's no question. Like, why is it a cold case? You know it was this guy. We know his
It-
name.
I want like a sequel in this world where it's like 2015 and everyone has like Leatherface t-shirts like he's Ted Bundy, like, or like people who wear Manson t-shirts, like it's a Leatherface t-shirt, everyone knows about him.
There just
um
should have been certain iconic things. I would have liked him licking his lips and his weird teeth would have been nice, but no.
One thing about that footage thing, because they also do it at the beginning.
Yeah.
I got really excited when it started, and I started writing a note about it. I was like, oh, this is cool, because what I thought they were going to do was like take the camera through the house to like where everything that happens in the movie like following takes place. And so like you see like the narrative play out in short, like through this like camera going through the house, and then you see the movie and you see like what happened in those spaces. I was like, oh, that they're gonna do that. They didn't do that.
We just saw the nails. That's it.
Yeah,
That's the
you
only
they
thing
were
that
like,
took
there's
place.
nails on the staircase, and then
Which
it
the poor
ends.
blonde guy did. Holy shit, they went
Did he?
hard.
Is
Yeah,
that
he
was
was the
that?
one scratching on the wall and his fingernail breaks.
Oh, tragic. But yeah, I was like, oh, is this gonna be like a cool thing? Are they gonna really like use the house well? They don't use the house well, but it doesn't matter, I
No.
guess. No. And that's the
But
thing. It's a lot of like, oh, I wish they did that, but I guess it's not a bad movie because they didn't. This would probably be less of like people would probably be less hard on this if it wasn't like a called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know,
oh, but it had to be. I think it's
it
enough.
had to be.
Like
That's the
it.
thing.
Um, I think no. I think it's a good movie. I think it's one of the better remakes of this time period that was um, characterized by a lot of remakes. This was one of the more successful ones of them. And we got two sequels off this motherfucker.
What
So,
else was there? There was Prom Night, obviously Friday the 13th,
Last House on the
Halloween.
Left,
Was there a
Halloween.
Last House on the Left?
Yeah, and then there
Oh,
was Nightmare on Elm Street,
oh
uh,
yeah, yeah, there
like
was with
Fright
Jackie
Night. You
Earl
name
Haley.
it, you name it. There was a remake of every successful '70s to '80s slasher movie.
Yeah, it's so weird because like we were saying, it's like simultaneously more brutal than the 90s, but not as fun as like the movies that they were referencing. So it's just kind
Not
of
as
like
fun and not as like complicated to me. Like those
very
'90s
much
movies were saying quite a bit, not just about art, but about like life imitating art, imitating life. That's a
not
fucking
even
quote from Mickey. One of the killers says that, motherfucker. Like, holy shit. But now we're a
not
million
even
steps back.
Yeah, not even the 90s, just like I think the 70s and 80s and 90s all like cumulatively had that kind of like
Hmm.
complicated relationship to the public, but this was where like for better or for worse, like they became more normalized in the 90s, the genre, I think, which was good for the 90s, but then you get to the 2000s and it starts to become a limiting thing,
It
which is
is,
bad.
and I think I've brought up this comparison. It might be a superficial one, but I think it nails it pretty well. Like Watchmen as a superhero comic book, I think operates best as like the last superhero comic book that ever needed to happen. I think it
I
kind of
could see
killed
that.
its genre, and I feel like the same thing about Scream. Like Scream operated as like Watchmen for the slasher genre. Like it's hard to follow it without getting. There are ways, and I think Williamson was working towards those ways, but as exemplified by things like Final Destination. The other way you can go about it is to get so deep inside of postmodernism that the stakes don't matter, that nothing, like you can get so far as post nihilism. It just doesn't matter. Nothing matters but except
That's why I think this
gamification.
was inevitable.
I
Yeah,
believe so
I
too. I
agree.
just wish there was someone smarter than you or I or anybody who was apparently working at the time who could have figured out a way to go. Maybe there is no way
I
past
don't
that.
know.
Maybe there
It
isn't.
it needed to happen. I think it was inevitable because like it's like a very long historical process of horror getting assimilated into something that everyone can watch. You start
Yeah.
with, I mean, not to say the horror started in the 70s, but I'm thinking more of like this brand of horror, like because
Yeah.
the slasher, the kind of exploitation film, and it's a long process of it becoming normal. But then I think after Scream, you can only go here, and then after here, all you can do is because this is like simultaneously really brutal and then really non-confrontational, which is weird because it's a movie made like
And it's weird because I think
during.
it's morality betrays its brutality. Like I don't
Yeah,
think you can, like the original one was so nihilistic, to a fault. Even you could argue this one you can't have morality and brutality, but they do, which like I think this film is a lot more moral
yeah,
than
it,
I think even it thought it was. Like I think
it's
this
a
was a
weird
very like morally a grandstanding kind
unambiguous.
of. I think it was a morally grandstanding era. You know, like I criticize some of them for being insensitive, but it's mostly because they set up this like this morality in their film that I just feel is not just out of place, but maybe a little like grossly visualized. Like when you bring that sort of morality into it, the brutality of it conflicts with it in every possible thematic way and aesthetic way too.
It's weird because like usually contradiction I think is useful in horror, like kind of like it's healthy for horror is like contradiction like that, like what you're describing. But here it just doesn't provoke anything. It's very weird because it's like very in your face contradictions, right?
Yeah,
Like it's brutality meant to reflect like things going on in the war on terror, and yet it's also designed for television, like basic cable. It's weird. Like, why isn't this more upsetting than it is? It's not really upsetting at all. It's weird. I don't know. And
I mean,
now we're
huh?
at like the aesthetics of like Conjuring, Haunting of Hill House, Hereditary. That's which it's kind of like a streamlined horror. Both like the good movies and the bad movies of right now are all kind of like a I feel like a streamlined horror. You know, they kind of like
Yeah,
hit their limit with the brutality, and now it's kind of aestheticized horror. Like, I don't know. They're like, now we have horror with an artist behind the helm, and I was like, that'd be a first, I guess. Which of course it's not, but
yeah.
it's weird. It's weird. The arc of horror has been very bizarre.
It is. It is very bizarre. I'm sorry. This phone just keeps ringing off the
Oh
fucking
no,
hook.
it's all good. It's all
I have
good.
no
But
idea why. Oh,
you're
but no,
famous.
dude.
It's Michael Bay asking. It's like, Zach, we got to make our movie. It's,
Why do I feel like it's a slight possibility Michael
watches
Bay
this.
will watch this? Yeah.
This is the movie Michael Bay is worried about having been a part of. You know, he's content with his Transformers legacy, but he's worried what people think of Texas Chainsaw. But uh, I mean, no, it's this era is over by now. It's well over.
Well over. Not sure
Well
what
over.
killed it, but I think that Halloween 2 did.
I don't necessarily think anything killed it. I think it was just, Obama was elected and like the
Yeah.
attitude changed. People were,
I
that
just sense a great deal of immaturity from this time period. I do like it.
this
I
time
don't
period, yeah,
hate it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Especially compared to the one that just came before it. The one that just came before it was just so
I don't know.
so insightful to me. Like just about the nature of art, about the nature of humanity within it. Like it's really interesting. This one, like I said, back to basics, back to like the primal basics of like horror movie making, but it's more contrived and even more insincere this time around.
I don't know if I'd quite call it kind of immature. It's more it's the difference between someone who's like, someone who doesn't have a lot of money in like the early 70s saying, I just want to go all out. Because like Wes Craven making Last House on the Left, the attitude was like someone said, just write something fucked up. And he's like, all right, let's see what I do. And it became something very evocative, something very politically charged, whether he realized it or not. This is like the beginning of that era where people were like, no, we're making a movie about something. I don't know if it was this Texas Chainsaw movie or the 2013 one, but I know the guy that played Leatherface in the original film, he was contacted about either this or the next one. And the producer talking to him said something to the effect of, yeah, this is going to be a real about something now, unlike the original, it's not going to be a
Oh
bloodfest
wow.
like the original. So it's that attitude of people who like go in, I think, with the expectation that they're making like something superior, but they don't actually have much to say compared to someone who went for something more
Well, I mean,
undiluted and raw.
I would call insincerity and hubris immature, especially within horror.
Yeah, fair enough. No, fair enough. It's that kind of attitude. It's just they're not making horror. They want to make, movies that someone, I guess, that watches the Academy Awards might respect, I guess. Like which is
Which means
ludicrous
they
to think
fail
in.
on both accounts, though.
Exactly. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. They want to make like intellectual horror. It's someone that makes the distinction of saying I want to make intellectual horror when why wasn't it
When that
before?
implies
Yeah.
that such a large amount was anti-intellectual,
Yes,
or at least
exactly.
lacking
Which
depth.
I can understand that given like the attitude towards horror in the 80s. Granted, I'm very positive about that era of horror,
Yeah,
like
it's just
I
an attitude. Like we don't horror fans never. What I want them to stop doing is like complaining about Oscar nominations or whatever. They don't need
yeah,
validation from these people. You don't need it.
which is
Uh,
mostly because this genre is about making people uncomfortable. So it's like if you're that palatable to people, then you probably weren't, doing something
exactly.
provocative to begin with, which, you know, I don't, which is
Which
not to say horror can't be like on some level for everyone, but I just mean like going in with the intent that like you want to appeal to a certain group of people is probably a limiting factor. Whereas, someone who says goes in saying, I want to make something just fucked, like
yeah,
I want to make a movie that I want to make a movie called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's a certain attitude you go in with.
yeah.
But
Or
regardless,
somehow we ended up with a remake that does turn into a literal superhero movie. Jessica Biel is fucking a superhero at the end of this movie. I would call unrealism. Like this amount of it is just kind of outrageous. I hated the whole paternal weird thing. I don't know. I
and
don't know.
we sound pretty hard on it, but I think we're both like fairly positive
Oh, I
towards this
like it.
movie.
It's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like I said, it's efficient. It's a well
it's
put
a
together
good
movie.
movie. Um, it deserves to be harsh. Like we deserve. It's a remake of one of the best horror movies of all time. Um, the makers knew this going into it. uh, Kind of deserves a bit of more of a critical lens, but especially because I do think it is saying some pretty large things about culture at the time. So like we're looking
Yeah.
at how it's articulating these ideas, and at the end, I don't know, at least the hot girl and the baby lived. I don't know. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know,
That's that's it. Their only concern at the end of the day is that Jessica Biel and the baby survive. That you know
ex-
everything back in its right place. Everything as it was.
but I think that it's more than serviceable. I think it is a good movie,
Yeah.
and I think that I think it's an important and a significant film as well, because I think it does really capture that the change in horror. Then like this marks like complete change. It was in the mainstream. It was this is it. This is what horror is going to be like from now on. Like this movie, Wrong Turn, House of a Thousand Corpses, and Cabin Fever really established that. Because Saw wouldn't even happen until a year after this one. Still, like this was
Oh
still
yeah.
pre James Wan.
And
So like it's really set the tone, and every remake at least would follow this one's lead.
yeah, just about. And I kind of have a feeling we're gonna move towards something similar to this at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Just I don't know what's it. We've talked about this before. Like we don't know what really is going to happen in the next like decade or two for horror, like how it's going to evolve. Because in the past three, it's rapidly gone through multiple different arcs.
Yeah.
I can see something comparable to this, more than like a return to like '90s stuff. I think there might be like a shift towards brutality again, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
Um, yeah. Just
Unless A24 changes the game and completely and everyone tries to make movies like that. But
that could be a possible thing. Oh
mm.
man, I don't know. I think. Do we have any final thoughts on this?
Chainsaw swinging on the floor, gyrating chainsaw arm spinning on the floor. Very
I
sad.
think that is a good final thought. No, final thought. Yeah, this is a good movie. It's definitive of its time and its place, and I hope we don't go back to it. Like I hope, but then again, I don't want more pioneering within this so-called elevated aesthetic horror that we're in either. I don't know what I want from horror movies now. Maybe I don't even want movies to exist anymore. I think I'd be perfectly comfortable without them. Because basically every angle I can see horror going in, we lose.
Well, maybe commercial horror, but I think there will always be, you know,
I mean,
an
possibly, but like
an
I like
independent
when like
sphere.
commercial horror, I like when horror actually like reflects certain
Uh, yeah,
certain internalized things about the culture, and that has to almost be commercial to do that, to at least communicate with the largest number of people.
maybe that is what'll happen. It'll the current kind of vibe of horror will just keep following through, and I think maybe without realizing it, it'll start to come full circle and become uncomfortable again without even being aware of it, you know? Maybe
Yeah,
I would hope that'd be an interesting turn, you know? Like you
maybe
take
it's
like the Conjuring, the James Wan style out, and eventually you just come full circle and you're back to Nispel. Nispel.
as long as they come back to Nispel. No, I like that neither of us know how to say it.
Yeah, I'll never know. I'll still gonna watch Friday the 13th though, but I have no
I
idea.
liked it. I liked it. It's fun.
Cool.
This is probably better than that, but you know, Friday the 13th, you're not making any grand statement with it. You never were.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everyone for watching or listening. It's been our discussion about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I hope it was informative. I mean, we like it. We're just
Yeah,
should be
that's a good
harsh on
time.
a movie that remakes one of the best movies ever. So
Also, I think it's worth, really breaking down something that's so emblematic of an entire era of horror, you know?
yeah,
So, yeah.
I agree. All right.